why, but you don't know how you're going to act on sunrise until you're on sunrise. Everyone talks about that. It's very relatable experience.
Everyone thinks about like the delay between the studio and on-site. You're like, I'm going to beat that delay, but then you just don't. There's still that awkward gap.
I messed up the delay in the middle of the interview.
Yeah, when she had like a joke that she tried to give to you, like a little lob, and
I was like, oh, I've lost it. I'm off. I'm going down. But yeah, for the listeners, when you're on sunrise and everyone gets their shot on sunrise, you don't know how you're going to act and you kind of go Super Saiyan, you know?
Welcome back to the Sharehouse podcast. It's a place to air gripes, find compromise, but it's also the ultimate guide to sharehouse living. And today we're joined by the funniest comedian on the planet.
Wow.
That's by your words.
That's you. I read that.
Just came off the Fergalicious tour on the Melbourne International Comic Festival. Well, I'm killing this intro.
You're doing great, man. I'm glad I put you in this seat for this one.
Just came off the Fergalicious tour at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. Has an illustrious podcast with big guests and stands at above 6 foot tall. That's intimidating. Fergus Neal, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm loving this Sharehouse. It's a cool vibe.
Yeah, I was wondering, because we'll get to it in a moment, but I don't know whether you stand on the side of liking share housing or not. So I was actually scared to have you in my home. I know you're going to call things out and be like, hey man, recycle bin's a bit full.
What's that statue of Jesus doing there?
It feels like Buddy Bikram's house. Like, it feels like it could be a yogi center. You know, you've got the map on the wall, which is cool. Is that like you've traveled to whatever continent that is?
That's my housemate's map, and I think he's just, I don't know if he's ever actually been to South America. There's a map over there that's of Melbourne, and he's plotted out the nearest Bunnings within a 5 kilometre radius because of COVID. Really well travelled.
Nice quirky touches from everyone who lives here.
And you don't live here, Joel, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
So how'd you guys start this? Like,
it's a good question.
You guys don't live in the same share house.
No, we both kind of moved out around the same time. We were both experiencing kind of the share house experience at the same time. So it came together on that front, I think.
We're the least educated guys to run a podcast about share housing, full disclosure.
No one else is doing it. So
you guys are still living at home.
You're technically still sharing a home.
I pay rent here but sleep at mum's just down the road.
Yeah, just
your parents are in the next room like, look at the boys on the little podcast thing.
I'm not in mum's basement. Mum's in my basement.
Recently you were on Sunrise discussing sharehouse living with K-Dog Kochie, who's just recently retired, which is sad news to Australia.
R.I.P.
There's a quote from the show that I want to start the podcast off with by Leo Patterson that said, he said, "It is also true that share housing can be fun and rewarding experience," to which you scoffed immediately.
It's also true that share housing can be a really rewarding, fun, great experience.
Yeah, Fergus, you're shaking your head there as Leo just spoke. Shaking your head about share housing being a great experience?
No, share housing isn't a great experience.
Yeah, that was bad. I don't know why, but you don't know how you're going to act on sunrise until you're on sunrise.
Everyone talks about that. It's very relatable experience.
Everyone thinks about like the delay between the studio and on-site. You're like, I'm going to beat that delay, but then you just don't. There's still that awkward gap.
I messed up the delay in the middle of the interview.
Yeah, when she had like a joke that she tried to give to you, like a little lob, and I
was like, oh, I've lost it. I'm off. I'm going down. But yeah, for the listeners, when you're on sunrise and everyone gets their shot on sunrise, you don't know how you're going to act and you kind of go Super Saiyan, you know? You kind of level up. Like before they said, we'll meet you in the car park across the road from your house. It wasn't even my car park. It was like a random car park of like a library. And so we were there at like 7:45. So I went to the IGA and I got like a Big V energy drink and I had my sunglasses and I rocked up to the cameraman. And the cameraman was just a freelancer, no idea who I was or like really anything that was going on.
Yeah.
And so I was wearing my sunglasses initially because I'm just going to go on sunrise with the sunglasses, drinking a V. I had my vape that I just looked...
Corey Worthington style.
And also I was wrecked. Like it was 6:45, which you know, something scheduled that early, I just give up on that stuff. Like it's not going to go well if it's before a certain time. And I had the sunglasses on. The producer was like, "You got to take the sunglasses off."
Oh, bummer.
For some reason, I had lied and said I have epilepsy. I don't know why I said that. I've never even thought about that. And I'm like, the bright lights are kind of passing me out. And then the camera guy was looking at me that. And then the producer's like, can you make it 5 minutes? And another producer I could hear in my ear was like, we've got 30 seconds. So I take my sunglasses, I put on my head. So I go on air with Kochie, with the producer thinking this comedian might have an epileptic fit on live air.
So bad.
So everything, and in my ear, they were talking to me while I was going. Where before, they're like, you're speaking on behalf of all renters in the country. Something like, they're like 4 million people. They're really like gearing me up.
Yeah.
Like it's like a coach's speech, like in my ear.
You are our voice out there.
Kind of, yeah, no, really. And I was like on V. I was like, I'm not the guy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not your guy. I'm not going to be the one who saves the rental crisis. You know what I
Neil
mean?
the poster boy.
Yeah.
Says on V like it's drugs.
So did they approach you to go on? No, sorry if I missed a detail on how'd you get into
That'd be
this?
so sick if I messaged them. I was like, yo, I'm your guy. DMing Sunrise. I'm your guy for breakfast TV.
Turns out 30 seconds before I'm not your guy.
This will be the first time I've been awake since before midday all year.
I was like, I have epilepsy. What happened is they messaged me the night before.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow, just a DM. They saw one of my TikTok. I think I had a video on the rental crisis, which I kind of like. I tried new videos where it's like funny, but then also has some information in it.
Yeah.
And I think it did well. Got like whatever views. It did enough to get Kochie's attention, honestly. As they messaged me like, can you come on Sunrise tomorrow? And I kind of thought it was a prank. And then I looked at, you know when you look at someone's profile, and you're like, oh no, they're legit.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, it's going to be at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Wake up at 5 for just like a talk through with the producers. And so I wake up at 5 and then all this stuff happens. And then I'm on air, kind of, you know, nicotined up, energy drink up. I felt so good for the rest of the day. It sets your day up, honestly. When you're on Sunrise, you have such a better day for the rest of the day. Like all your family, like my family doesn't care if a TikTok goes viral. But if you're on Sunrise, it's like, this is huge for the family.
Yeah, it's like if you're an actor, it's like going on Neighbours is like that Australian badge of approval, but like being a public figure, Sunrise. That's the one.
Mum was never more proud of me than when we were sitting in the lounge room and my rerun of Millionaire Hot Seat came on. And she saw me winking at the camera as Mikey D's on screen. She grabbed, she's like, it's my boy.
Mainstream TV hits so hard with the boomers.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
They love
the
it.
viewership is so low. Like the one TikTok that blows up will get more than they'll get in a night.
But I tell you what, it's disparate. Like getting a TikTok that goes viral, it's like the viewership is dissipated. With Sunrise, it's like 500,000 old people.
So true.
Like that day I got recognized from Sunrise from older people.
Yeah, good
they're like,
point.
you're on Sunrise. And it's like, yeah, like it's, you know, whereas TikTok, sometimes people are like, you're that fucking TikTok mother. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, it's not as nice.
No.
The
It's a
Sunrise
dirty
recognition,
fame.
it's, I'm trying to get back on if I'm being honest.
You're like a local celebrity now.
It's Sunrise it's a different feeling, you know. And I speak to like our friends like Ruben and Radio Mike, and like I'm starting calling them alt media. I'm like, here on mainstream media, we're the real ones.
Ruben, you might have almost 1 million cumulatively, but I was on Sunrise.
You haven't been on Sunrise.
Yeah. I mean, you're tapping a completely different demographic. Like,
So-
nobody who saw you on Sunrise knows who Ruben is.
No, and I kind of like those different like algorithms of Australia. You know?
Yeah, gotcha.
And it was kind of annoying Ruben a little bit, I reckon, when I'm like, I'm on mainstream TV. He was a little bit like, you know, because no matter what he does in a way, you can only get on there if you're invited to get on there.
I get intrigued by this because Arnie Donna spoke about that for the majority of the start of their career of big media doesn't want us, Australia doesn't want us, and now that they're wanted, they're on ABC.
Yeah.
But I thought you've got millions of views online, which is just overshadowing anything comedically that goes live to air in Australia.
Yes.
Why do you want that?
It's interesting. I think there's something like, because we grew up with like Rove, you know.
Yeah.
Thank God you're here.
I
Like
sneak in taping Rove behind my parents' back because I wanted to watch it, but it was too adult for a little child.
and it was an amazing show. Like Rove had Gordon Ramsay on, and like I'm pretty sure Prince Harry was on at one time. It's
Yeah,
like they're
wow.
actual like for Australia. It's like this is a huge show.
So that was that one late night show.
Yes, and they had Good News Week and
Yeah.
Hamish and Andy were coming up then. And it's like, I reckon if you're in your 20s now, you kind of remember that golden age of Australian comedy.
Yeah.
So I reckon even Auntie Donna would have that, where it's like there's something about being on TV where it's a little bit nostalgic as well.
Yeah.
I didn't have that with Sunrise because I've never watched Sunrise in my life. and I thought like when I was on, I didn't know that I'd just be getting the audio feed. I thought they would give me a video. But so I'm looking into the cameraman's face who doesn't believe in me. Like he never believed in me the whole time. He's like, what are you going to talk about? I'm like, oh, it's like Philip Lowe, the rental crisis.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right. And he's like doing the camera and
You
stuff.
put him
and
on edge, mate. You think
He was
thought you
nervous
were about to
about me,
seize
yeah.
at any moment. If there was like the sun came out of the clouds, you were just gonna collapse.
Well, imagine turning up to like a random car park and seeing a dude walk over in like a hoodie and like sunglasses on and a V energy drink, just like, yeah, we good to go? It's like, he asked me my full name. He's like, are you Fergus Neal? Just like clarify. I wasn't some drongo.
Yeah, I'm Fergie Ferg, brother. What's going on? Nice chance. Can I see him? He thought you were a staunch lad.
It was fun though. Yeah, I want to get on all this. I want to get like on the Today Show. I want to try and do all breakfast TV.
The morning
if I can.
circuit, yeah.
Yeah, they were worried about me because originally it was just going to be me, and then they're like, nah, we're going to split screen you with the union dude for the
Leo.
tenants union, Leo. Yeah, and I've
Yeah.
got to reach out to Leo and apologise.
No, I think
I really took his airtime.
I think he took too much of yours. That was my because the quote here. It is also true that share housing can be a fun and rewarding experience. You didn't seem to agree with it.
I would love to dive in on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is
Yeah.
the Sharehouse pod hosted by two guys who live at home, but I feel like
It's not true.
We're getting called out.
can I have a clock in the background so you can't edit me?
No, there was one there before. Now it's the Grand Prix.
Do you live in a share house?
Yes, but I'm in a minimal share house with just me and a guy.
Okay.
I've lived in big share houses before. I've lived in a 6-person is my biggest.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
6 is big.
That's too many.
That's too many. Yeah.
Nearly like
I mean,
multiple
yeah.
kitchens at that point. Like,
Yeah.
is that
yeah.
a 2-fridger?
I think we did have a 2-fridge at one point because like
That's
an outdoor
nice.
fridge and an indoor fridge.
Yeah, you need it. We were struggling with one. There's two of us here.
This is down in Geelong as well. So it was just like
times are tough down there. It's the coal mine town of Australia. That's not the
battle
hill I want to die on. Actually, if I'm going to die on a hill, it's not that Geelong sucks.
Geelong's fine. It
Great neighbourhood. It's coming up.
nothing more to say about that.
Go with cats. Yeah, the
They'll
cats.
get him back on side. Yeah. Go Geelong.
Gary Ablett's great. Sorry, please continue.
Well, I feel like share house experiences also they're very varied. You know, your listeners will know that. That's like my experience now with one person is so different to being in like that big share house. You know, like in that big share house, we had like kind of every person on fairy floss. You know, like we had a yoga couple, and then we had like one guy who was like a party animal.
Yeah.
And the yoga couple would go to bed at 9 o'clock, and that was when like the prees were starting for the party guy.
Oh yeah.
So we'd have like house meetings where we'd have like an AGM for the house, and it was just like people like written material like this of like griefs and gripes that they had in the past, where they're like, I had like Vipassana at 7 a.m. and you were coming home, you woke me up, and like there was a lot of when people's personalities clash in a house.
Yeah.
It's like Carl Sevenovic and Kochie living in the one house. You know what I mean? Like one's a party animal, one's like a family man.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know?
You need your values. We talked about that.
Yes.
That a lot.
Yeah.
They have to align.
How did you get into that situation where such clashing personalities ended up in the same home?
Why did the yogi people accept that?
Well,
Yeah.
it's all it was my fault because I moved into the house. It was at the start
Okay.
of Melbourne lockdown. I'm just going to go back to, you know, Geelong area.
Yeah, Detroit.
It was a bit more chilled out without getting political. And then and then the cop really did.
Can you calm it down?
I started sweating.
Yeah, screw Big Pharma, am I right?
I love the police because I knew the local police officer from that suburb as well. I won't say the suburb, but like he was my friend's dad, went to school, so like I don't know, if you went to Woolworths 3 times in a day, he wasn't, you know, booking you. But I was down there, and so I moved into the share house, and with one other guy, we're in like a massive share house.
Yeah.
And he got a drink driving charge, so he lost his license, and he was a plumber. So he's like, I'm moving to WA because I can whatever go back to my family and stuff.
Right.
So I was in this house by myself. So I was in charge of bringing people into the house, and I didn't vet enough. And I brought in like 5 people because I'm like, let's get this cheap. So I was like I was the genesis of this terrible situation where it's like. I had like a whiteboard of names, and I'm like, all right, we got the yoga couple, we've got like...
You're just trying to get bingo rather than like just aligning a good group of people.
It kind of was like celebrity heads. I was like, I was orchestrating what the house would feel like and what it would be like.
Sure.
You don't really get that opportunity much to start from scratch.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Well, I had this great house that I was in by myself for like 2 weeks, and I'm like, all right, let's build something here and let's make this
The Noah's Ark.
a great And the best thing is, well, I was in this room that was on the second floor. Well, I had the second floor.
Okay.
And so whoever was in the share house the longest got to be on the second floor.
Right.
So I was on the second floor, and they were all downstairs kind of like squabbling with one one another. I had my own bathroom. I had an ensuite.
Oh, nice.
So good. And cheap as well because it's in Geelong.
So it didn't really matter what their routines or what their kind of habits were. You just had your own little ivory tower up there.
Yeah.
In a way, some could say that they would always joke about like, this is the Big Brother house and I was Big Brother because I'd orchestrated these clashing personalities and they were always bickering and I was up there just like kind of witnessing it but never being involved.
You're cameras and screens. Like,
I was kind of like, no, I was a witness to it, but I was never involved because they were fighting about the bathroom. And there was always a little bit of chatter about them using my bathroom. And I'm like, I've never had an ensuite in my life and I never will again. And you're not taking a shit on my
I've got everything the way I want. The toilet seat is at my temperature. No.
I can't go back to sharing.
I'm wondering why all of them agreed to move in despite, like, did they do any vetting or were they just like, oh, sick, cool house, we'll move in?
Well, that's
sure.
part of the benefit of the rental crisis, I think, is that people don't talk about this enough. During the rental crisis, there has been some positives. One of the positives is if you start a share house and you get to interview people who want to be in the share house, it's like they go harder for a house than a job. So they're really putting themselves forward and you get to orchestrate the ultimate manner. You know, you get to make this house beautiful. And, you know, you're kind of like, look, what can you bring to the house? What can you... It's a power trip. Yeah. You know, I'm going to be a horrific landlord.
I can tell.
Don't you think our rental generation, like when we become landlords, I think we're going to be like, well, we had to live through this rental market, so now you're going to live through...
Well, that seems to be how it goes, right? You get bitter about what you lived through, so you want someone else to live through it worse. Like our parents like, oh, you think you had it tough? Yeah. Here we go.
I reckon until that comes all the way around.
We're going to be, the worst landlords, you know, and it's going to be in terrible areas as well because that's all we can buy.
I was going to say, you're assuming we're going to be landlords. I'm lucky if I can buy a home in Diggers Rest.
You know, my apartment on the 8th floor in Belgrade, it'll be $1,600 a week, bro. Like,
am I the first guest to come on and be pro landlords?
I think so.
I thought this was the landlord pod.
We're actually just realtors talking about how hot the market is right now. How to exploit young people at 101.
But I think this is a fun topic for the episode. Like when you're in the position of building a share house, it is that kind of power trip, and you can like. It sounds like you really screwed up a lot of lives in the process.
No, they enjoyed the house. They loved it. We had a skate ramp in the back of our house. We had like a massive skate ramp. So we filmed videos on it as well, where like the previous occupant of the house, he was a skateboarder. Surprise, surprise, a skateboarder got a DUI and lost his license.
Oh, no. Hey man, that's not cool. Skateboarders chill.
Yeah, Cowabunga dude, he had to skateboard back to WA. How did that? Across the Nullarbor.
Get over ditch. Like Marty McFly in the back of all the cars.
He would do that around Geelong where he would hold onto his friend's car and like he would like...
Makes sense. Geelong's still in the 70s.
Power charge up,
But it's interesting to me, so you've got this house full of completely conflicting personalities.
Yes.
For them to then write down their grievances and gather around a round table and air them, how did that conflict resolution go?
I think
was it productive? Or?
That's the hardest thing in a share house, isn't it? Where it's like you got two options. You can either address it and then like maybe there's a little bit of bitterness, or you let the bitterness fester just by ignoring it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like someone drinks a cup of tea really loudly and they're being passive.
Yeah.
Passive share house, I think, is one of the worst share houses you can be in.
100%.
Yeah, because then people start to act out passive aggressively, which is almost more annoying than someone just fronting you and saying, that's really annoying.
100%. Like they're in the shower and you're pumping the hot water out here to give them a cold shower or something, but you don't know if that's what they're doing, but you just, you know, like little mind games like that, I think in a share house are bad. Because it's that trope that all share houses end with a combustion.
Yes.
That's what people say. It's like, no man, don't live with your friends because it'll combust.
Yeah.
And I've had so many friendship groups where like, what happened to the house parties? They were great. And they're like, oh no, we don't talk to those. It's like, what happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there are all these little things that no one talks about out loud, but in the share house, only those people know about.
Yeah.
It's all behind closed
it's quite
doors.
an intimate relationship, realistically, that you're having with somebody. And I'm realizing the more and more we do this podcast, like I'm in a relationship now, and the stuff I'm learning about that is pretty much parallel to living in a share house.
Yes.
I've got to treat it the same. You've got to treat it with the same levels of respect and you've got to tiptoe in some areas as well.
You got to water the plants.
Got to water the plants.
You do.
Yeah.
My housemate now, he's great though. Like it's like he's the best housemate I've ever had.
Yeah.
You know, so in a way, like I have Nam-style flashbacks to those other share houses. When you find a good share house,
Yeah.
you're like, oh. And we've got a good landlord.
Yeah, okay.
You know, which is funny because in a way on TikTok and then on Sunrise, I kind of have become the face a little bit of that rental crisis and interest rate stuff.
Yeah.
When I've got a great real estate agent, a great land, they must be watching Sunrise being like, what the f*** is going on? We haven't put up your rent. And we give you everything you asked for.
Maybe you should send him an email.
And I'm on Sunrise being like, yeah.
You dogs, everyone's vape smoking. You're the guy that's doing all of that. The perpetrator pointing fingers at everyone else.
That's my current affair episode. Like, pseudo renter owns 7 properties.
You're just a prop, bro. You're a puppet being controlled by the landlords.
Surprise, surprise, big media's lying to the people.
No way.
I don't indulge in alt media anymore. I'm just Channel 7 parties. That's it.
Yeah. That'll get you a full-time living at least. Nice steady job.
So, to round out the Kochie episode.
True, I forgot about that.
We went everywhere, but I
Yeah.
appreciate all of it. There was a big talking point about how the old fella from the RBA wants more people to live in homes together.
Yes.
We've already discussed that 6 people in a home is
a lot.
far too many. Do you have a cutoff number where it's a safe amount?
I think I surprised myself on Sunrise because I didn't go with any prep, and I said, "Oh,
Right.
Philip Lowe's trying to turn share house into backpackers." You know,
very good
and it's
line.
like backpacker hostels. When you stay in them, it's like you're in a 28-person dorm.
Yeah.
You feel it. You know, you feel the weight of the people in those rooms, and I
Yeah.
reckon like when you have 7 people in a house, even if you're in different rooms, you kind of feel. You know, the weight of, I don't know, is that?
No, totally relatable.
Yeah.
Because you can hear them and you also think, okay, well then I've got to control my noise because there's another human
Yes.
that isn't my person. That's
Yes.
not my partner. Or even like, it could be your best mate, but even then, you still want to respect what your best mate's doing. Are they on a phone
Yeah.
call?
Yeah.
You've got to respect that.
I think my sweet spot's about 3, because with 3 people, you kind of know, they'll be using like the kitchen at this time,
Yes.
the shower will kind of be used at this
3's
time.
perfect.
Yeah. Where you
Yeah.
get to 4, it's like you have no idea when the kitchen or the shower will be used.
I didn't think about that, but 3 is the perfect number.
Yeah,
because
I
there
reckon
can be
so.
one person in the lounge room, one person in the kitchen.
Yes.
It's like it's such a good, you know, kind of like circle of movement.
Yeah.
Whereas like, if you have 6, so sometimes we'd all be cooking in the kitchen.
that's a nightmare.
It's unbelievable.
The kinetic energy is off the chart.
Yeah, the
so
passive
right.
aggression. Someone with a pan being like, "How we all doing?" You know, it's like just shopping, like looking at someone's.
One in the sink, one in the microwave, one in the oven, one on the stove top. You really got to divvy up the meals.
No, I mean, again, 2 of us in this is a smaller home here.
Two's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and even that though, we find we're bumping into each other. So
Really?
6 would be. And we've got 1 bathroom as well. Do you have 1 bathroom at your house at the moment?
Yeah, 1 bathroom. Yeah.
So imagine even like we have a partner each as well, and sometimes both girls are over.
Yeah.
Then there's 4, and that becomes
Yeah. How good's the partner dynamic when you're in a share house and it's like, all right, we've got 3 people now, and then everybody gets boyfriends or girlfriends.
Yeah.
And it just doubles.
yeah.
Or when you're the one who's
Yeah.
not in a relationship and everybody brings their partners over. That happened to me in lockdown where I was in a share house. This is before I went to that big share house.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a partner and they got partners.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I had that too, and all of a sudden turns into a bit of a party house. Like if your
Yes.
house is like the chosen one to be
Yeah.
stayed at, or like it's got a good space to host.
And you're in your room by yourself, and you can like hear everything, and it's nothing lonelier than being in a share house and hearing your housemate, you know, procreate. I think it's such a sad. I don't know why that's the saddest thing ever.
quick side note,
Yeah.
the etiquette behind that, thoughts, feelings, do you just not, I think I don't address it. If I know it's happening, I'm just like,
Yeah.
don't address it.
What's my housemate
Yeah.
said when I was in a relationship? He said, "Oh yeah, when you do that, I meditate," and I was like, "That's even worse." It's
weird.
like,
That's
you gotta like
terrible.
bring in all the sounds in the house, so he's just like listening to me. Like,
It's like being as present as possible.
Yes. It's like-
Yeah, that's step 1 of my Headspace meditation app. It's listen to the noises outside and then listen to inside the body.
Yeah, as soon as you finish foreplay, that's when I get to the next phase.
listen to TikToker Fergie Neal. Yeah, but they're the dynamics you have to deal with in share houses.
Yes.
You know, that like I think maybe not my parents lived in share houses, but my grandparents were like, you're in your family home and then you get married, you know? So in a
Yeah.
way, there's only really been 2 generations of share houses across millennia, which is interesting.
Oh, I've
I
never
don't think
thought
they
about
had
that.
share houses like
That's a great point.
It always was just with your family, then you get married, you know?
Yeah,
It was
by the
very
home.
rare that I mean, the first share house must have been pretty revolutionary when it's like,
Yeah.
we're not getting married. We're moving with three of my boys.
Maybe they took like the uni/college dorm room idea and just applied it to
Yeah,
houses.
that could have been
That's
it.
a good point.
I wonder what it was, because I always wondered that. I read this book where it was about like a uni student. It was like in the it was around World War One.
Yeah.
And it was like diary-esque, and everyone just lived on campus. I'm like, true. Like maybe like
Yeah.
if you were poor, you just didn't go.
Yeah, he just didn't go to uni.
No.
Yeah, there's this guy on TikTok I saw that like had a tent and then he'd cycle to uni.
Wow.
But everyone made fun of him because it's like, why don't you just move the tent closer instead of cycling 20 Ks? That was right.
That'd be sick though, to be like a tent on camp. That wouldn't be sick, but it'd be an interesting dynamic in O Week.
Yeah.
If you were tent man, you know what I mean? You know what, on O Week, you got to have like a dynamic about you.
Yeah,
you got to have a
wrong
perspective.
crowd. We haven't been to uni.
No, I just
Why
crashed
you-
0 weeks. That's all I did.
You guys give me such like that you met at uni energy, like your friendship.
I deferred 3 years in a row from film and television at Beacon.
I spent 1 year at film and TV and I dropped out.
You didn't even do the year, bro. Don't
I
even
did the
try.
year. I
It was like
started
6
second
months.
year and then I stopped.
Yeah.
Well,
You
you
don't
guys
know anything about me. What are you talking
Do the
about?
listeners know you met on a cruise ship?
Yeah, I think
It's
we've
been spoken about.
Yeah, which is pretty much the same as meeting at O Week at uni. You're just
was
kind of.
I
very-
mean, not really, but
Imagine a week on a boat. It's a week
how
on a
did you
boat.
guys get on a cruise ship in your 20s? Like, isn't that such like a...
Oh, we just followed our parents.
It's like you're 65. Were you on the cruise ship with your parents?
Family trip.
yeah.
And we met in a club on the dance floor and they were playing like...
On the ship.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Why were you on a cruise ship?
You've been to New Zealand on a boat? It's
Yeah, we're
fantastic.
our parents are part of the landlord generation, bro. We're fine. Don't worry about
Cruise
it.
ships, it's like the worst people combined onto a boat.
Exhibit A,
I just
baby.
can't. You can't imagine you guys on the deck in like speedos on the banana lounge.
No,
Should
well,
have
we
actually.
just
It was
united.
hot.
I think we just came together with all the other kids that had just followed their parents on board. Like, we
Yeah.
don't really have a say in it. They were
There's
just
not
like big family
that many
holiday.
young people on a boat, realistically, because they congregate at the club like
How
young
old were
people
you
do.
when this happened?
19.
I was 18,
Yeah,
yeah.
18, 19.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so you didn't just go on each solo to meet people on this cruise ship?
No.
That's what I thought. I thought
Family
you guys
trip.
had gone on a cruise ship.
No.
You know, you've done like the Brisbane to Melbourne cruise.
No,
and
I was
you're
staying in
like,
a room with mum. This is very young person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dad paid for my drinks pass. Like, it was
Yeah.
on.
I want to do that actually.
It's dope.
I've been
It's
offered to
good.
do comedy on a cruise ship and I didn't do it.
Oh, it's
Just
Side
because I'm
note.
like, I don't want to bomb on a cruise ship and then be at the buffet with them in the morning.
No, it's
You know?
perfect. Trust me. I
It
worked
worked?
on a cruise ship. We'll talk about this
What?
later. I worked on a cruise ship but just before COVID.
Yeah.
The comics make so much money.
Yeah.
And not that it's an easy way to hone your comedy because it's a cruise ship audience and your jokes end up becoming, instead of about the rental crisis in Melbourne, it's how about the buffet the other morning, I guys.
I can see myself veering into that direction.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
tough. It's rough seas last night, guys.
Yeah, you
Jeez
kind of
Louise.
relax into a whole new world of living. Like, you say hi to everyone you walk past.
Yeah. Sounds kind of nice.
Good money.
Yeah.
Good money. And look, fun for you just to do comedy. If you want to, like, let's say you want to write a new show, great time for you just to go make
True.
like bulk coin on a cruise.
Yeah.
And then for maybe a month, you've got time to just write intensively.
Yeah, I've heard mixed reviews about it, but yeah, that's a good. Yeah.
Something to just try once, see if it
Yeah.
works.
True.
Big comics have gone through.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I had one question, a final question to wrap us up, especially about Sunrise.
Yes.
Was there anything you wanted to speak about that you didn't get to because you only had, 3 minutes on air?
Yeah, I was gonna list off like some of the stuff from my video that went viral, which I think are interesting stats.
Yeah, okay.
But it was good because it came across funny.
Yeah.
But I think it could have come across a bit more informative because in the video that I made, it was like 70% of Airbnbs used to be long-term rentals, which is like a stat that nobody thinks about. You know, and if you just got rid of Airbnbs, even for a year, like that's like another whatever, how many thousand dwellings that people don't think about, you know? And I think that would have been interesting to speak about on like national TV.
That is
But
a
I just
great
ran out of
point.
time.
Yeah, I
You
heard
know?
something about like if you have a property that like no one's been in it for 6+ months, you have to pay like a tax for not having people living in that house. But that relies on people dobbing themselves in.
Yeah.
So it's like if you know a property that's been vacant for over 6 months, you can dob them in so they can start paying tax because no one's going to be like, oh, I have this tax to pay now. It's been 6
Well, there's
months.
zombie properties. Like in
Yeah.
where I am, it's like it's a apartment. So it's an apartment block, and so across from us on our hallway, they're all empty. And the guy came to visit the other day. I'm like, oh, are you moving in? And he's like, nah, I'm just keeping it. He'll just come by every few weeks to check on it. I'm like, that's just that has to be happening a lot.
What's the point of that?
He said he lived in Phillip Island. He just comes back by to check on it, and it just accrues money each year, like it just goes up by $10,000 in its value every year.
Yeah, of course.
So it's like he's
Why
making
not?
10K from it being empty.
Yeah, and it's almost harder to have people renting these days.
Yeah, in a way, yeah, people complain,
Yeah, because we're getting more laws that are beneficial to us as renters, but the people that are landlords, I think...
We're going pro landlord again.
It is a pro landlord podcast now.
It's becoming tougher. But at the same point, it's so expensive that them at the same point.
I think in a way, like even that taxation is state-based. So it's not like every state has different. So some states don't have a vacancy tax. So you can just have an apartment that's vacant, you know, and it's like, cool. It doesn't do anything. When I was in America on exchange, I met a friend who was rich and his dad had done that in Australia. He bought property and it's just like, yeah, I've just got it there. I'm like, what? Like there's just empty stuff that you own. It's like, yeah, but it's accruing money. Wow. It's like there's weird little things that you could do that would make the rental crisis a lot, it'd mitigate a lot of stuff in it that people just aren't aware of. So they don't act on it, politically.
I mean, you have a large brain with a lot of knowledge and thoughts. I decide to actively bury my head in the sand. But one TikTok I saw the other day.
Glad we're the voice of Sharehouse living.
They just spoke heavily on how properties started to become a point, like a money source and an investment source. And that's when things started to heavily change. I assume when share housing started to really pick up, when people realized you could buy something and then start renting it out. I think that's changed the landscape. I think that contributing with Airbnbs, that's two major factors as to why we're in the position we're in.
Well, what nobody talks about is that kind of everybody has a vested interest in property going up. No one really wants property to go down, right? Like the average politician owns 2.25 properties, where the average Australian is like 0.7 properties.
Wow.
So if you're a politician and you're bringing house prices down, you're losing money for yourself, which is wild and nobody thinks about. Like Tony Burke, who's like very left, he has 7 properties, which is wild, So why would you pass laws that bring prices down when you're vested in the problem getting worse? That's one thing. But then also, if you think about it, like my parents, they haven't paid off their house, but they have bought a house in the 90s. So it's like, even though there's a lot of kids in my family, in a way we don't want the prices to come down because we'll inherit this asset, so a lot of people, like, we want the prices to come down, but we're all kind of vested in it getting worse. That's the wild mind of it. I'd love to see the stat on how many Australians are like 1 degree away from property. So I don't own property. My parents own a house. My parents own 3 houses. Because I got friends like that where like, oh, the rental crisis is terrible. But then their parents are like, I've got a friend specifically who their parents own 3 houses. And it's like, cool, you can complain about housing, but in the back of your mind, when they cark it, you're going to inherit maybe $4 million worth of assets. So why would you want your future assets to come down in price?
I was at the dinner with Mum and she made some sort of comment about like, oh, you ever thought about buying a house in the future, Joel? And I'm like, Mum, I'm literally, the most likely scenario where I get a house is when you die, I will inherit your purchased house. And that's probably my best course of action on that front.
Totally, yeah. So in a way, like even if subconsciously you don't want that house to lose value. Can you imagine if they brought house prices down to what they should be, which say like $200,000 gets wiped off property? How much money are people losing as part of like their future and what they think is going to happen to them? Like no one really wants that, know? I was talking to like doing a gig with Tom Ballard last night, and we were having a conversation because he's very involved in that. And it's like even this Australian Future Housing Fund, where they're going to put $10 billion. This kind of, it might be a bit boring, but they're going to put $10 billion into like, essentially it's going to be like a fund, right? So it's not going directly to housing, but it goes into a fund and the fund will accrue money over years and they'll use that money to buy, to buy social housing and public housing and stuff like that. And like, that's the only way they could do it in a way, where it's like they need a fund to do it. They're not brave enough to just, put $50 million towards new housing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They can't really, like, they're not going to do that. They're going to put it in a fund so that in a way they're almost disconnected from it, Right. I think in a way we're a little bit
well, for sure. I mean, like my dad worked in real estate for years and one of the biggest problems that he kept coming back to was that we continuously build up in suburban neighborhoods and you'll notice everyone has a problem with people that buy property and just put apartment buildings on it because it ruins the feel of a suburb. But The bigger problem is that we just don't have that infrastructure to keep building up. We're refusing to build outwards.
Yeah.
And micro cities aren't a thing I found in Melbourne that are popping up as much. Geelong realistically should be a thriving metropolis where we can then keep on building out further that way. So then the Torquays of the world and all that is still near a CBD.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
we
that
don't
might
have that.
happen. That's what I think will happen. It's probably just like Geelong will become the Philadelphia to New York.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
exactly
I think
great
all these
point.
regional places, but Australia gets a bigger population.
Yeah.
Will just become, you know, bigger cities, hopefully. You
Yeah.
know, it's what I got friends who I know in America who they're just not enjoying America for reasons that I guess are obvious.
why.
And so they're coming to Australia. And so I think over the next 5 years, there's like 1.5 million people moving to Australia.
Yeah.
But the government's only putting in 30,000 houses each year.
Great.
So it's like, it doesn't take a NatPlan genius to work out that there's, you know, a little bit of a skew, you know, and that's what they're worried about. My friend who lives in Florida, she's like, oh, is it hard to get a place? I'm like, it's hard now. So I can't imagine how hard it's going to get. You know what I mean? When there's, you know, the supply and demand issue comes in.
Yeah.
So there are all these little interesting variables that I think, like, I reckon, like, my prediction on this pod is that in 12 months' time, the Airbnb, like, someone will do something about that.
Interesting.
I reckon there'll be a
legislate.
tax. I reckon there'll be a tax on it for sure. Yeah.
Get Ferg back in 12 months. We'll
Yes,
talk
get me
about
back in
that.
Thomas. There'll be a tourist tax for sure. Yeah, they mentioned on the project in passing, but that's interesting. It's kind of like maybe a little bit of weight talking about it.
Yeah.
But 70% of Airbnbs used to be long-term rentals, but people making as much as they would in a rent
Of course.
in a day.
Yeah, because what is it? 400 a night.
Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you do that,
Yes.
honestly?
You guys
Wow.
should do it. You know, when my housemate was away, I was like, dude, I'm gonna Airbnb your room when you're gone.
I reckon I'll take out the fridge and then Airbnb the fridge space. Because someone can stand there. So
100%.
Not you.
Some of
Someone.
the Airbnbs I've ended up in, it's like, just a room in a house where someone is also just living.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Airbnbs is so bad.
Yeah.
Even Ruben and I were touring. He was so bad at booking Airbnbs. So bad. He booked this Airbnb that was in like a house. It was like people coming off the methadone program. And I was like, dude, I think we're in a methadone program house. Like, not throwing shade at it, I think that's the situation you put us in. And he went outside and this guy was talking at like 4 a.m. He was yelling, he was going, yeah, fucking. And Ruben went outside. He's like, can you please be quiet? And the guy's like, sorry, mate, I just got out of jail. Just got out of jail yesterday, so we're having a bit of a party. We're celebrating. And Ruben's like, went back and shut the door. And it's like, we're leaving.
We're getting the tent out.
And I was like, we're in a halfway house, aren't we? He's like, yeah, we're in a halfway house for sure.
Ruben.
Terrible. He's so
Ruben.
bad at booking. Even we're going on this UK. We're going to the UK, where I'm opening him for some shows. I'm going a week early to try and do some comedy clubs in London.
Sure.
And I was looking at the places he's booked, and it's just like, damn. It's like Black Mirror type stuff where he's like, he's so bad at booking. I'm like, I wouldn't have booked this if I was like inebriated.
Yeah.
And you're booking this like with full free will.
You're not looking at the upside. You're making and saving so much money here. You're welcome.
be
We
good to
are
talk to
saving a
him.
lot of money. But
Yeah.
like, I'm like, it's like when I was in Vietnam and like we could have caught like a $50 whatever. We could have spent amount of money to get a flight back from Ho Chi Minh. And instead we did like 7 stopovers on the way home.
Yeah.
To save $50.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes just spending that $50 like
Worth it.
saves you.
I don't know. I think we're talking to Ruben after his UK tour would be very interesting.
Well, Ruben is good because he's dead inside, so he doesn't feel the normal emotions of other humans. So when people are doing so, he doesn't feel it. Whereas I'm quite hyper aware of what's going on.
Sure.
In a environment.
Yeah.
You know, like we're in an Airbnb and I'm like, this dude's just sleeping on the couch and we're in his room. Like that's what's happening. You know that, right? And he's like, nah. And then like we go to bed and like he's on the couch. This guy's just putting his room as an Airbnb while he sleeps on a couch
Stop
to make
it.
money.
That's ridiculous.
And it's like, yeah, it's wild. So Airbnbs, burn them all.
To be
you
fair,
know?
very rock star of you.
True.
Like
Yeah.
Dave Grohl had that type of situation in his books, so this is great for the
Sure, yeah,
autobiography
yeah.
one day.
The memoir.
Yeah, Fergie Ferg.
TikTok of renter.
So if you're going to take anything home from this episode,
There's a lot to take.
there's a
home.
lot to take home. We love landlords, but we also hate landlords. Try to bring in compatible people into a house rather than trying to score bingo on all the personality types.
Keep going. This is very impressive. Keep going.
That's all I got. I was about to handball to you, to be honest.
It's great co-hosting. That's amazing.
We work well. It's a cruise ship friendship. You got to start investing in
Yeah,
some.
you won't get this out of uni friendships, bro.
We'll have Ferg back on soon because there's a wealth of knowledge here that I'm learning too much, and it's actually intimidating because I don't want to know a lot of it. Like I didn't need to know the Airbnb statistic. I didn't need to know.
I want to hear more about the cruise ship industry. I'll be a cruise comedian in like 2 weeks.
Oh, mate,
Yeah, let us know.
I'll convince you very shortly.
You'll just be on the boat.
But honestly, if Ferg started a Sharehouse podcast, we'd be screwed. Like, that's
Yeah.
our business gone. We
That's
don't actually know
competition.
anything.
True.
I think that's the upside we have though is we
Yeah.
don't know anything.
And if Sunrise, if you want to get us on, we can talk about what we don't know. That'd be great.
Only if Koch is still in the building, but if Koch is out, I don't want your replacement. I'm sorry.
You know what? The producer might actually listen to this because she follows me.
Clip that.
If you're listening, get
Well-
these boys on Sunrise.
Peter Hitchener follows me, and I don't know why Hitchy hasn't got me on, and so does Tracy Grimshaw.
Yeah, Tracy does.
Because Peter
follow you.
Hitchener hosts the news. That's
Yeah,
right.
we are viable news sources now. We know about that 70% statistic.
I'm hoping the news becomes the Daily Mail, which is like TikTok clickbait, where it's like DJ Mikey. We never talked about that when I was doing a gig at on New Year's Eve on the Hill. I was doing comedy there.
Oh wait.
And
man.
Mikey was the DJ.
Yeah, I was there. I was
You
the
were
one,
there
I was the
too?
one dressed as a cowboy in front of him.
He was the
Yeah.
guy in the stand with me filming. That was
For
him.
listeners, you saved, because what happened is Northeast Party House are running late.
Yeah.
So they were like, it was half an hour in the crowd. Mikey was going Super Saiyan. You were like me on Sunrise. Like you rose to the occasion. A lot of V energy drinks
I
in your
remember
system.
that. You were panicking because you were like, I'm going to have to
You
do the
killed it.
countdown.
You
It's
killed
getting
it.
up to the
Thank you.
countdown.
Yeah.
Northeast aren't here.
It
Yeah.
got to, because I kept, you can see it in the snippets that I put on Instagram. Like, I'm trying to keep hype, but I keep checking
Dude,
around the corner to
you
see if they're on
nailed
stage.
it.
Thank
My friend
you.
who didn't know you was like, this guy's killing it.
That's
and I'm
so
like,
nice.
that's Mikey. You know when you kind of know someone but not really like, yeah, that's my cousin.
That's when anyone ever brings up Ruben. Have you seen this snippet? I'm like, best friends. Ruben and I used to go to childcare kinder together.
We grew up in the
Lamar's
same suburb.
class, Yeah.
He was a school captain in my primary school, which he
You gotta
was.
have affinity with people, you know? Even if you don't know them that well. Yeah.
We'll have Ferg back on soon. That's been the Sharehouse. Be good, be kind. Email us at the ShareHousePod. Bloody rate us on Spotify. We still don't have a rating, and it's starting to infuriate me. To be fair, we've only reminded you once, so that's not your fault.
Yeah, at ShareHousePod,
take
Instagram and
us out.
TikTok, sharehousepod@gmail.com. Send us your gripes, your stories, anything. Ferg, please plug your shit. What have you got
Plug
going
your
on?
Just, I guess, listen to the Ferg Neil Show podcast. Watch Sunrise. I'll be back.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you're in the UK, I'm just doing Backyard Comedy Club for 5 nights, and then I'm opening for Ruben.
Hell
Let's
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Catch Ferg on the Carnival Splendor, sailing out of Sydney, going around Brisbane. It's been the Sharehouse. Make sure to tell someone you love them today. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, boys.